Good evening, comic book inkers and coffee drinkers. Welcome to another episode of I'd Rather Be Motivated with David Fleming and myself, Scott O Green. This is our weekly or almost weekly check-in, art check-in show where we just kind of hang out to discuss problems and concerns and future plans and all that good stuff and kind of help each other stay accountable towards our goals of becoming world-renowned cartoonists. How have you been, David?
I've been great, man. Yeah, I liked your little remark there of the almost weekly, and you kind of paused like you wanted to laugh at yourself, but you kind of didn't. It's been a rough month, I feel like, for both of us, which is super funny. I always tell people that it's almost uncanny how in sync we get with like our creative sort of zones and things, and it always seems like on a week where it just didn't work for me, it's always the same for you.
Yeah, our creative cycles are oftentimes in sync, I've noticed.
Yes. What's the there's like a name for that whenever you're you living too close to people and you get on the same cycle.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I'm messing around now. Yeah, it's been a good week. I have one more day of summer school left, and I cannot wait.
I know that's been
have
killing
been
you, man.
out of the creative zone. Yeah, it's just like I mean, I blame myself for the most part. It puts me out of the zone, and then it's like I don't want, which is sad because I don't not enjoy my drawing and my comic and cartooning and stuff. Obviously, I do it for a reason, but like it puts me in a mood where I'm kind of stressed out, and then I have to do other things to like de-stress. But then by the time I'm done, it's bedtime. So that's been my life for the past month, which I mean, I feel like I'm skipping ahead to things here, but you know.
Yeah, no worries. I asked you how it's been, man, and you're being real. I appreciate that. No, but I hear you, man. Your schedule has been kind of rough. Like, I can't imagine, because that's just, like you said, it's a whole semester, but like in 3 weeks or something like that. So that's pretty condensed. And I don't know about you. I know we're just kind of jumping into it, but I've had a little bit of trouble, like, pushing my momentum forward with this next project. And it gets to the point where, like, I haven't got it. I haven't got that momentum. Like, I'm still pushing it up right now. It hasn't started to pick up speed. It's still hard. And so, like, it feels weird if I try to move over and start on these commissions right now. I feel like I'll just drop that boulder completely. Or if I, spend too much time in the sketchbook or just doing other stuff. So then it's like, then I won't do any of that because I feel bad if I work on that stuff that I'm not working on the script stuff, and then like sort of nothing will happen, and that's not good. But I have been reading a lot more with the time, like different comics and other stuff like that, and really trying to like learn from those things. So not coming out completely empty-handed, but yeah, I hear you. I've had a little bit of trouble just getting back on, just riding that momentum, and I know it's coming, so it's not like disparaging at all. I just keep working at it, but it's taken a little bit. So I can feel you. But anyway, we did just jump into it, and that's all right. Are you still with me?
Yeah, I am. I didn't know if you were gonna take it there and jump in a direction, so I was waiting to see.
No, I'm just gonna trail off into the night. Just start off the show with a nice rant and then trail off.
And then just completely leave in silence there for a couple minutes and see what happens.
But real quick, I want to give a shout out. We do have Ronnie and Matthew Enstrom in the chat, and also Elephant Gamer. Hope you're still there. Nice to see you. But yeah, we just a real quick. Well, here, David, analog missions. Let's do our kind of top of the show. We're out of practice here, but
I know it definitely feels like that.
Yeah. So the main thing that you got going right now is your analog mission stuff, and where can we find that book to buy it and see what it's all about?
Well, you guys can follow the link in the bottom bio. If you do not want to do that, you can check out my store in the Art of Mr. Fleming, and Mr. David Fleming is where you find me all over the world and on the net webs. Yeah, you can pick up your copy of Analog Missions, issue 1. I am drawing right now the villain of issue 2 as sort of a concept print kind of thing. Just kind of like, I think I've talked about this in the show before, but my thing isn't like when I'm character designing, I don't start with like turnarounds and that kind of stuff in the traditional way. I kind of start with a very strict illustration of the person sort of in a pose that I think has to fit with their style, and then I always make like a really finished sort of illustration out of that character if I know I want to use them later, and that thing is what serves to be my reference. I will and do, and I plan to this time, because I didn't last time, do more turnaround stuff, knowing if I'm going to use a character through multiple books. But this has always kind of been my flow for like how I feel like I sort of get creative and create characters and make them like last in my brain, is by making sure that I've sort of created them in a strict sort of posed illustration. So like I'll zoom out here and kind of show what I mean here, right? Like it's always about like a full shot from a certain angle that I like imagine the character from, kind of thing. So, but yeah, I trailed off there again because that's the zone we're in tonight. But Analog Missions, the first set of the books is going to be a series of 3, and I plan to release one a year through the next couple of years here until it's all done. So go buy book number 1. I print them soft cover, 50 pages. It is not a floppy. It's kind of my fun little way of mixing 2 worlds of the look and feel of a manga with my American style of art. Back to you.
Yeah. So for me right now, just wrapped up a Kickstarter with the 100 Days of Making Comics group. The Kickstarter is over, and thank you to everyone out there that contributed. I really can't thank you enough. And just so you guys know, like Mr. Fleming here with me, who also contributed, those surveys have been sent out. So please fill those out. There's a letters portion there where you can do like a letters to the editor. Obviously, you haven't read the book yet, but if you had questions about what the 100s is all about, or how to get rid of trolls from underneath your bed, or things like that, write it in there. Also, make sure we get the spelling of your name correctly, because we want to get all of those thank yous in the book promptly so that we can get it to the printer and then get it to you guys as soon as possible. But that went off like gangbusters. We got a lot of people, a lot of eyes on the project. Matthew Enstrom was one of the key people in that, really high numbers and making sure people were seeing this. And you can still see what the project is all about if you go to 100daysofmakingcomics.com. And there you'll find out what it's all about. You'll find out the book. And from there, all the different creators. You will still be able to buy a book from one of us out there. That will be available here, about in a month or so. So if you did miss the Kickstarter and you'd like a book, which trust me, you will, there'll be 28 different creators that you could probably purchase one from. Would love to sell it to you. So 100daysofmakingcomics.com. Me personally, if you want to keep up with me, see, I'm long-winded too right now. Instagram is the best place to go, where it's Mr. Green Draws, mr.greendraws. So that's me. That's what we've been up to. Those are some of our trials and tribulations. Where are you at currently? This is your new character, the new villain. Is that correct?
Correct. This is number 5.
Number 5.
Of the generals, which is sort of my cheesy blanket term for my villains of the book. But I've always kind of loved that trope of just like number 1, like having like a thing that everyone knows them as. And then number 2 is the like they don't even need a name. Like they're feared enough, and sort of it's almost like too like you've taken away a little bit of like that they're not human, which they're not, right? Pating, Tong Tank, but like they have only one purpose, sort of to serve their person, and they were bred and made for war and all that kind of stuff, So who needs a name? I kind of always love that trope, so I made it happen.
I love it.
Which is like
I'm really enjoying the detail up close. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, you had made the comment, like, we hadn't been creating as much, but we've been absorbing more, and that's actually why I titled our episode the way I did. It made me think about sort of the input and output of being an artist. And now Mike, look at me. I'm already jumping to the topic of the night. We haven't even gotten through the check-in yet. See, we're throwing it to the wind this time. But the idea of just like sometimes you kick yourself for watching the show or reading the comic when you should be making the comic, but each part of that is actually a part of making the comic. It's like this idea that your creative ideas just come out of nowhere and are just created out of thin space and not inspired by things that you've seen in the world and read and stuff. And So it's like I always try to make sure I kind of know where my ideas came from when I do get an idea, because I kind of acknowledge the idea that like no idea is truly original, but I have to kind of find a way to put my own original spin on it so that it becomes mine, and I kind of own that kind of thing. And I think that's super important as a creator to like realize. I think a lot of young creators think they're not allowed to touch anything that's been done before because it's been done and they're cheating or something, but it's like everything's been done. It's like it's your goal as a creator to do it within a different way and a different spin, you know, like robots have been done before, and all sorts of stuff. Analog missions have definitely been done before, but definitely, I hope at least, not in the way that I've been doing it with my. I sort of have combined like all three sort of writing medias and like prose and manga and American comics, and just kind of made my own little smorgasbord of what I love. And I don't know, I'm just really proud of it.
It's a beautiful piece for sure, man.
But do you want to go ahead and I feel like we should start the format, because
yeah,
I feel like we're in a zone.
Yeah, kind of wondering about your progress there on what you're working on and carrying into it. But yes, like David said, our format is a bit progress, problems, and plans, which we've just kind of been mushing around all through. For me, my progress has really been, let's see here, where have I been at? I have been still kind of reading and going through and making notes on that first draft of, I don't know what draft. Well, I guess I'm editing the first draft, but it's still in a very messy. The first draft is just going through and kind of writing down all bits of like point A to point B information as I kind of see it so far in my head. So it's not a very eloquent thing to read at all. And then it's going through making notes and Xing through and arrowing this part to that part. The next part, like the second draft or whatnot, will be a much more, I think, type it out to be a coherent thing that I could then show to a group of people, which I think is going to be a necessary thing for me to get some good feedback. Because at this point, if I try to get feedback off what I have, it would probably just drive somebody nuts with all the jumping around and everything. So I am going through and I am working on that. I have figured out my list of commissions that I owe for. I offered to a couple groups of people to do commissions for them for buying the book, The Werewolves and Unicorns and Other Mythical Creatures. So I've sort of figured out all those people and sort of started figuring out the poses for all those and outlining each one to just sort of get a start on each of them. And then I'll just pick one and probably finish it through to completion. But a whole lot of like little starts as far as that go. And currently I'm in my sketchbook working on a little illustration of Gentleman Jeff Gentry as a post for Instagram, because I've taken a little bit of time off since the Kickstarter, since I was on there so much. But a little drawing to say thanks from Gentleman Jeff. But yeah, that's my progress. Like I said, it's been slow and steady, but yeah, that's where I'm at. How about you, other than this fantastic piece here?
I finished one half of my commission that I was working on, so it was a little two-part commission. It kind of turned into a two-part commission, I guess, is what ended up happening. I finished the first half of that, and then yeah, I jumped over to this, wanting to finish this, and then I've been doing a little bit, just like you said, like kind of one of those realizations that I had. I was trying to just move on with it and start book 2 and like, let's do this, and yeah, momentum, woo! But it was like, it felt like I was rushing into things without taking a little bit of time to add some of the input before I jumped back into the output stage. And we talked about this the last time, that currently my sort of inspirations right now aren't actually coming from comics. They're coming from sort of the indie sort of studio video games that I've been playing lately, because I'm just like completely impressed with this cool thing that people can do now. Like, just like how I literally like self-published my own book and just made it happen because I was so passionate about a project. Like, people can do this with like a video game, and I'm playing this one right now that I paid like $7 for, and it's almost better than half the games I paid like $50 for, and it's just like this beautiful, awesome experience. And even like things happening in the game have like stopped and written down in a notebook, and I'm like, it's really cool to be finding some things from other places. It's almost like this thing that I noticed, and I noticed it after this, and I've actually been noticing it, but like I definitely noticed it a bunch after it. But it's like sometimes you read a book or a comic from an person, and you can kind of guess and see exactly where their inspirations came from, like their what their sort of thing they're mimicking is like super apparent, which like isn't like a horrible thing, I don't think, but like it's almost like they're only being inspired by comics and they haven't looked elsewhere at all, and you can feel it when you like read their book. And so I realized that there's this thing of I need to not just read a bunch of comics to be inspired to make comics, but I need to like take all these aspects from all the different things that I'm doing and learning from and stuff. So it felt good because it made me think about that and like, okay, I actually honestly maybe I need to just like this last month I didn't actually get a chance to work on the comic was good for me because it let me like sit back and absorb some things, some random other materials that I probably wouldn't have touched or messed with, and now I can jump back into it. Like I'm even kind of I'm like 50% done, if not more, with the cover or what I was gonna call the cover, and I don't actually know if I'm gonna keep it. Like I'm kind of about to scrap it. That's why I kind of didn't start with that, because that's what we ended. Was I said I was going to be done with the cover, but I'm not done with it now because I don't actually know if I want to be done with it.
That makes sense.
I might have rushed. Yeah, I might have rushed into an idea just for the sake of like knowing that I wanted. Like it's where I start. I'm a micro prepper. I just made up that term on the spot. To get started, I went and bought a notebook, and then I went and I cut the whole first chapter of Bristol, and then I started planning of the cover. Like I do all the little tiny steps that like lead me into where like the only next logical step would be to start the book. And so I think I was just trying to rush myself through the process so I could be there and be like, okay, now I have to start the book because I did everything else. And I think I needed to take a step back on that. So I did a lot more thumbnailing and planning of the interior of the book to like try to think of some stills or scenes from the book that I could maybe capture in like a different illustration. So
for sure,
I would lump that under
kind of an idea of that cover possibly is like not necessarily locking you into it for the long haul, but just giving you that nice finished something where you can go, you know, if for right now it's just like a cover representing volume 2 on your Instagram page, you know, not necessarily even this is the cover, but like, you know, you just post that with like part 2 has begun, you know. Maybe take a little bit of
that's why I'm finishing this. Sorry, I didn't interrupt, but that's why I'm finishing this illustration. I've decided this one's going to become kind of like a little bit of that, like
nice.
Part 2 coming now, like here, like meet number 5, like, you know, something like that kind of thing. And then that's what it was like. This is my micro step now to make me feel like I'm working on the comic, even though I'm not. It was like, all right, well, I'm going to go back to that awesome drawing I made of that villain that I loved because she was awesome, and then it would get me stoked, and I'll get myself back in my zone and stuff. So
for sure. I would just suggest, because that illustration, whether you change it or not or whatever, or don't use it, it is pretty sweet. So I'd save that at least for some end of your second book material for concept art that maybe you didn't end up using or half finished, or this is my first idea for the cover before I landed on this, and this is how I got it.
I can even shove it in the fan art section and be like, variant cover, you know, whatever. Like, sound really fancy, like I meant to have 2 different designs.
There you go. It could work.
But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We both kind of talked about our problems as of late, and I don't want to sound too whiny or anything. You just want to talk about, I feel like things are on track where definitely this next weekend, Sunday or Monday, depending on with you or your preference, I should definitely be able to get back here with you, which us getting on a better schedule too, which, like we said, hasn't been anything other than just life happening. But maybe help some momentum. So what do you feel like if we just jump into our plans for the next week?
Yeah, let's do that, because I definitely I got to make some goals. That's definitely the place where I'm at.
I hear you. One thing, this is kind of a bigger one, and I'm totally just throwing this at you on the spot, David, but you and I joked around. You were like getting your book put on store like your beautiful book, you've got it in and you're putting it on the walls in comic shops, and our Kickstarter was, funded and going for stretch goals and everything. And I remember remarking to you as I got off the phone, like in a text or something to the effect that I think we're definitely out of phase one of I'd rather be drawing. Just kind of meaning we've always sort of been talking about setting our foundation in the website and setting our foundation for this and for that. And it's like, I think we're definitely beyond that. And you said, yeah, we're definitely into phase two, man. And it was a good feeling, but I got thinking, phase, like, that really does mean something for us. What do you think of us trying to figure out a 5-year plan for ourselves to talk about next week? Like, where we kind of, like, you're already talking about, you're on at least 2 more year investment with this book. And like, when you're an artist and you've only got so many stories to tell, seems like at least 5 years, you got to, not that you have to necessarily stick to that, but you should kind of have an idea of your trajectory. What do you think of that homework assignment?
Yeah, I kind of like that actually, and like I think it's what you mean, but I like to reword that. It's not like I only have so much time to tell a specific number of stories, because I have plenty of stories to tell, but I'll never have the time to tell them all. So I have to like.
Yeah, but if you can physically make this many pages in a week, and you can physically make this many books in a year,
right,
type of a thing, there are limitations. So it's like, okay, what do I really want out of this? Now that I realize that this is a thing where I can make books, it's not just simply that anymore. It's like, okay, what do I want to do with this thing? So if you're down, it's been on my mind, and if we're into phase two, let's start figuring out what that next level looks like. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm super down. That's a great idea.
Cool.
Let's do it. 5-year plan. Wow. Yeah, I'm already, I'm already 4 years in immediately right after you said that. So let's do it.
Heck yeah. All right, that'll be fun. On top of all the other stuff, like, I don't know if you want to mention artistically specifically, but that can be our topic for, phase 2 of IRBD could be the topic next week if you want, and we could just do our normal. This is where I'm at with art and with analog missions and with October, but our homework assignment.
I like that. So there you go, guys. Stay tuned next week for better topic than tonight.
Nicely done. No, but anybody out there, I do encourage you as well to think about it. And on your YouTube channels, let us know what and link it, in ours next week or this week or whatever, so that we can share it and talk about it. And if you guys want to join us in the discussion for that as well, I think it could be a cool one. I think tonight is fascinating as well, Mr. Fleming. But what did you say the topic was?
It was my topic, so I'm making fun of myself here. So.
No, I know. I'm just being a jerk. But getting back to the topic, or are we on to that?
I don't know. Did we talk actually about our plans, or did we just?
No, I glossed over it.
Like trailing off.
Glossed over. What are your plans to get done by next week, David?
So I'm hoping to get this illustration done. I'm hoping to get the information for my other commission and it started as well, and not necessarily done, but kind of like on my radar. I'm gonna finish this commission, and I think I'm gonna put myself back into saying no to commission zone for a couple months. Yeah, I want to kind of. I guess my plan is to make a plan. Is that okay? Am I allowed to say that? Is that a cop out?
Your plan is to make a plan?
Yeah, like I need to.
No, with bookmaking, like, that's a legit thing. Like, if you actually make like a solid plan by next week.
Right. So if I don't, then we can hate on me for it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the idea is I have all the supplies I need, I have all the ideas I need, but I need to actually get myself into the zone where I do all this like very strict, like I wrote this thing down and this is in a file and it's in a folder inside of my laptop and it all looks good, but like getting me actually creative is like just getting a sloppy piece of printer paper in front of me and starting then just like making squares and being like, okay, now actual page 1 through page 10 like will look like this, and I need to get myself there. I would love to like. I might even, let's see. This is like where my brain's been at, and it's like even when I try to talk it out loud, like I'm like tripping over myself, and I can tell it's why nothing's happened on the page. it's like I need to figure out either the cover, if I like the cover, if so, then just freaking finish the cover, and I need to get inside the interior of my book. I just really need to be there.
You need to. What was the last thing you said? You need to what?
I need to get inside. Like I need to get inside the book. I need to make an interior page. Like I would love to make like page 1, like do like some panel work.
Oh, gotcha.
But I feel like what I'm talking about right now is like plans for the month. Like I'm not going to get that in a week, but I'm finally on break. Like tomorrow's my last day of summer school, and I finally have time. Like I got to beat Hollow Knight. That's on my list. I know like that because I got to get that off my radar. That's the game I've been playing to like relieve my stress. The freaking raddest game ever. I gotta beat it, get stoked about it, and then just get back in my art zone.
That's a hilarious art goal. I gotta beat this video game so I can get back on the stories. But no, I hear you, man.
But it's like it's a story right now that's in my head. Like that's how like playing games is for me. Like I am hung up on this story, and I need to finish it. And then it's like, oh my, it's beautiful. Like I sometimes wish you played video games so that I could like really make you understand why I'm so stoked about this game. But it's just like it's like a thing where I feel like you would even be stoked like watching me play it, because you'd be like,
well, yeah, like I've spent a lot of years watching all my friends love and play video games, and I did grow to appreciate a lot of the storylines and things that were going on. So I feel you, brother. I feel you. Did you know like people are now like making not only indie video games but like indie arcade games? Like panel, like you go and play Pac-Man at the bar now, but they're making consoles that are indie games. So I think the next evolution is going to be like you go to like a downtown bar arcade, but they're going to be like all indie games.
Like they're like emulating them into an arcade cabinet, or like
yeah, like just like the game you're talking about, where like it's a group of indie people that created this video game. They're that, but instead of for your phone or your computer or whatever, they're making like gaming cabinets and putting them like selling them to bars or whoever. Does that make sense?
It is like a really cool idea, because I'm imagining like it's like a reason to go to like a specific bar. That's almost like how it used to be. Like, yeah, let's go to Larry's. They've got Pack Invaders or whatever. I'm just trying to think of.
Well, yeah, I was like talking about this and talking to some guys at work who somebody said they were at a place and they had one in the corner that was like this one that was an indie made one, and it just occurred to me right then. I'm like, oh, that's going to be the next step, and that's going to be pretty darn cool to go to a place and it not. The nostalgia, I don't know, it's like records are back in fashion, but people aren't just like buying old records. Like people are printing new records, Same sort of thing, I guess. So
yeah.
I think it would be cool. I'd love to see, I guess pinball, people still make new pinball stuff. I love pinball. I found a pinball museum in Chinatown in Seattle this last weekend. Oh, I want to go so bad.
I have never been good at I almost called it pinball.
I'm not either. I'm still not. But I just don't care. Like the design of them, how they work, like really the design and colors and how those things and how they like use that to tell a story instead of like a big moving screen. Like I'm very, very not good at it. But I'll just sit there with the roll of quarters anymore and just keep pumping it in because it's, I don't know. I love them.
I just like how you said very, very not good at.
Very, very not good at. Very, very, but I'm very, very good at English. I speak the words well.
Well, hey, you should have said I speak words good, and then you would have gotten the joke better. I feel like you. Yeah,
you just so darn intelligent.
You spoke too well there.
Whatever, to wit. Oh my gosh, where are we? So for next week, I'm going to make an independent video game cabinet.
Is that what we've trailed off to?
Yeah. No, but I think, you're going to finish that, and I think we got you covered, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's like, I need to get my thoughts organized of what I need to do. Honestly, I think I summed it up by saying I need to beat this current obsession, get it out of my brain, and get myself back into the zone that I'm in. Because it is just like, I'm just all over the place with it. as you can tell, as I'm like thinking here about it, because I'm like, I have all these things I need to like cross off of a list just to sit down and draw, and that's like,
I hear you. Some of them are obstacles, but one thing we talked about last time that I think does feed into the topic, and you can re-describe it to me again, but it's just kind of like being in the moment for now. Obviously, we don't want to let a month, 2 months go by because, like we said, you only have so much time to get all your stuff done and you want to be growing. But there are times where, you know, I want to beat this video game. I want to actually read through this stack of comics, you know, and if it maybe perhaps sometimes if you can kind of like your ebb and flow with creativity between projects and everything, kind of when you know that that's coming and fill it with good input, you know, garbage in, garbage out. It's good vice versa as well. You know, when you feed that machine good stuff and inspiration, maybe that's just a way to kind of help push that momentum. As long as it doesn't become a crutch for too long, I guess.
That's probably a part of it. Yeah, I don't know. I just had this thought of this like, it's almost like I found myself that I do this to myself every time that I've finished a big project. Like I've just done an Inktober, and I'm like, sweet, and then in my head I'm in the zone. I'm like, awesome, let's ride this fire. But then like 2 days later, I'm like, yeah, over that. So I'm gonna do this stuff instead because that's not happening. And it's like, and I've realized that it's like after a heavy outputting of art, the way to recover is like a heavy inputting of like other people's art.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's a beautiful thing. It's like that's when you get to give yourself permission to be just enjoying other people's work and not feel guilty for not being part of the contribution of new work. I think that's like it's like a thing that has like you know me as an artist. I don't a lot of the normal things that get in artists' heads are not the things that get in my head. Like
yeah.
I'm not like a cocky person or anything, but like a lot of the things a lot of people are like constantly telling themselves they're not good enough and stuff like that, like doesn't really get me because I've long accepted that I'm not good right now, but as long as I keep working, I will be good, and so I'm just going to keep working.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff doesn't get in my head, but I get all this other stuff in my head of like, okay, if I'm going to be an artist and this is what I've chosen to do and this is my life and I'm dedicating all this extra time to it, then like, I got to be contributing to the world of awesome creative things that people find. It's like that thing of like how stoked I am to have like when I find a good book. Like I remember the first time I read Black Science, which is still one of my favorite series ever, like how stoked I was. And I was like, I want to make comics. Like a big part of my thing is like the idea of that feeling for other people. And if I'm just like sitting on my butt playing video games all the time, I'm not contributing to that thing that I set out to do. So yeah.
Yeah, but once we get over that, we understand that you gotta, you know, fill your creative bank account.
Yeah, and which is another thing we talk about all the time on this show is that idea of like, and I think that goes back to the other comment I was making, which is like people who are whose bank accounts only get filled by one thing, like from the genre of it. You know, like I imagine there are probably people on a video game podcast right now talking about like all these young creators are only playing Call of Duty and no original first person shooters are coming out anymore. You know,
yeah.
You can do anything with video games, but we're doing this stuff. And I think that's kind of my feeling about comics a lot of times too. It's like we can do freaking anything with this. But like, this is what we're doing. We're making clones of Superman. Like, why are we making clones of Superman?
Yeah.
We can make anything we want.
That's funny. I encounter similar but quite different sometimes where I feel like sometimes maybe like more with like I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of the opposite, I guess, from what you're saying, where I feel like sometimes people aren't reading comics. Like they're making comics, but they're not really like bringing in whether it's new or old stuff. It's just like they read comics till they got to a certain point in their making comicsness that now they just make them.
Yeah, I'm pretty guilty of that one.
Well, I don't know. You go through phases, and like, I don't know. I don't know. It's a weird kind of balance because it shouldn't be just comics, but it's like, I do think that you should know. I don't know. Somebody called me out a couple years ago in a nice way, but kind of like okay, man. This person like named a few comics, and I was like, oh, I don't. And they were like newer ones, and I was just like, oh, I don't know that one. I don't know that one. I don't know that person. And after like a few, she was just like, if you're gonna be in this, you should probably kind of know, the current like, Eisner folks and the big books. And I took it with a grain of salt because honestly, there's so much stuff out there. I'm sure I could have rattled off a couple titles that she was like, oh, I don't read those kind of comments. But it did make sense to me too that like if this is kind of like what we're devoting to, there's a certain amount of stuff that you really kind of need not just stay current on, but I do think kind of like exploring your history while seeing like where it's going. But in that you're hopefully seeing all the different things that inspire all of those creators and things. The punk music that goes into Tank Girl, which leads you down a painter's path. I don't know, like it's a weird thing, I guess, because I see where you're coming from, but I see the opposite sometimes too, where I don't know, kind of rambling there.
I mean, that's a good point too. I mean, you can be so uneducated in the thing too that you just do like I like to pick on you for this one, but like Comic Sans, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you made the Comic Sans mistake when you were new at this, and that's like a funny thing to like look back on. But it's like you can't be completely ignorant of the craft and the world and the subculture of that craft, but it's like I think like that even that person like where they were coming from might have been in that vein of like being so wrapped up in only knowing about comics. You were like, yeah, but how about like novels and other things? Do you know anything about the people currently of that one? Like writing is a beautiful big world where it's not just happening in comics too. Like
yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I had this very introspective thought actually today, literally like on my way to work and on my way home. I do lots of like thinking in the car. It's a 20-minute ride on my way to work, and with the way that freaking traffic is in Kansas City lately and all the construction, it's been a much longer ride than that. And I was just like thinking about this as I was like listening to the radio and how I like as a high school teacher, I get like accidentally absorbed into the pop culture way more than most old people.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like I think about all the things that have been in like popular for like the high school kids, even in like the 4 or 5 years since I've been teaching, and how they've already gone in and out, and how I've actually probably been like slightly inspired by some of it, because like every once in a while you're like, you know what, I like this one. I'll give you guys credit for this one. And then like it sticks with you, and then you're like, man, I would never have been touched by that thing at all if I had not been in this environment. And I guess maybe like the point of the talk was this thought of like not being I don't know if there's a word for this, because I definitely think I used to be guilty of it when I was a younger person, of just kind of like hating things just because, just like being salty towards a thing because it wasn't in my culture. Like,
Gotcha.
I grew up as like a kind of getting in trouble skater type,
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like cool to hate cool stuff.
Yeah, people still enjoy that, but I hear you.
And so then I just kind of had this thought of just like literally just kind of like taking everything anybody has done. Like a good example is like I find all the time that like students of mine like have like a SoundCloud or like are like trying to like produce music and do stuff, and so like I'll play it. I'll be like, yeah, give it to me. We'll play it in the class. Like let's let let's let everybody hear it, and like I'll be kind of embarrassed, or someone tries to be like a hater, and I'm like, hey, like I don't see you trying to do anything here. Like you can't even pass my class, like let alone produce a song. Like what are you doing out here, hating on all this creative stuff that's out here, like. And it's like sometimes I've even like literally heard things from my students where I'm like, that is surprisingly good, and I'm never going to admit that I'm writing that down in my brain. That's really good.
That's very cool. Yeah, man, you never know where inspiration's going to come from, so you got to keep your eyes open for sure. And if
Yeah.
it's a time where you're like on a downswing, quote unquote, of your like big projects or whatnot, it's a good time to, I don't know, if you're focusing so hard on that story and you're just like, I'm not getting it, that's a perfect time that when you do take a break from it and play the video game or watch the movie or whatever, don't be so passive about it. Really kind of try to dissect it and figure out why things are doing what they're doing and why you like it. If you don't like it, figure out why you don't like it. Maybe realize that it's just why you don't like it and not why it factually isn't good to anyone out there. But yeah, like really evaluate those things that you're taking in and learn from them. Because while I think people who are cartoonists should be taking in cartooning, yeah, music is a huge inspiration for me. And I just kind of recently remember that. And I've been listening to podcasts so much on my way to work and books on tape and different things like that to really be taking all this stuff in. I kind of forgot that for me, a lot of those ideas and my creativity and learning process comes from just listening to music that I love and really kind of not just like exploring new music, you know, and through that it takes you down all kinds of paths of, I don't know, education. This is that we should change the topic for tonight to random rambling. It has felt good, man.
I mean, it's all in the same. It's all in the same vein. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I just feel like I've had lots of things on my mind. Usually, the way we get them out is by like having our show, and we've been doing this every other week thing, and I haven't been able to get the stuff. If I started saying the stuff to my wife, she'd be like, "Why are you telling me this? Don't you have Scott? Like, call Scott. Like, leave me alone."
I know we've actually been thinking about David and I doing a night because we get together and even like tonight we were running a little bit late because my computer thing, whatever, reboot and whatnot. But it's usually even when we're prepared and give ourselves extra time, it's still usually like, hey, how's it going? Cool. Well, let's get started. Like we should just have like a art check some night that isn't necessarily for the world, but we just sit down and talk about those phase twos and things like that. Because yeah, you're right. I encourage anybody out there. I mean, this comes up a lot when we talk about our art check, but if you're stumped or whatever in any way, I encourage you to find a creative buddy. If you're an artist and they're a writer, I think that could work too. But for David and I, we're kind of two people doing a similar thing from much different angles. And yeah, man, when you don't have that sounding board, it definitely changes stuff. And I find myself just sitting in my own head a little bit too much. So it is good to kind of get the cobwebs out, even if it is live on YouTube with obviously like 500,000 people watching. So
Yeah, right. Yeah. Everyone is just getting into the minds of us right now. Like, just millions of people are just understanding me as deeper as a human now.
I know. I mean, I'm off my game a little bit, folks, but please be understanding. Dramatic reasons.
Right. Smash and like the subscribe button, guys.
But anyway, so besides let's jump to this last thing about, because this is kind of a whole bit about a segment that we wanted to add to this, which is just kind of what's been inspiring us. So that game, what's it called? Do you want to tell the world?
Yeah, it's called Hollow Knight. It is you're a bug, and it is like one of my favorite kinds of games where like you just drop down. It's like a platformer, side scrolly kind of game, but like you're exploring the world to find out the story. Like there's no tutorial, there's no anything. You don't just like start out with like in a world where bugs live around. It's just like you just drop down and there you are. You're a bug with a cloak and a skull mask and a sword in your hand and go kill some other bugs and find out why. And it's awesome. It's like weird and mysterious, and the soundtrack is awesome. I literally have been listening to it all week when I draw. Like the little bit of drawing time I've had, like I've been jamming to the soundtrack of this. Like it's like this thing where like I think we've talked about this too, of like sometimes wishing that comics had a soundtrack because it's like the one thing that it almost feels like the genre is missing.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you're playing the game, if you drop down into like a peaceful, green, lush place, like the soundtrack matches, and if you drop down into a place where like you can't see 2 feet in front of you because it's like dark lit, like it's creepy and it's weird and like spiders are crawling across the screen and stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be here right now. And like it's just awesome in every aspect, and the art is awesome. And I started working my post today. I started a little fan art piece on the two characters that I kind of think are the main characters of it all, and I drew them and was like, oh my gosh, this game must have been so much fun to make, because drawing these characters was like a blast. So that, and then the one I played before, it was called Dead Cells, and it also had like a really kind of obscure kind of like story that like in the end, after I was done with it, I was like, I think this is actually kind of the story of my book. And it was like in a way, it was like the twist of the game was almost like a little bit of one of the twists that I'll be adding into parts of my story. And I was like, well, all right then. It's kind of crazy how these kind of things happen, and it kind of cemented like this feeling of like, is it like a good thing? Should I make that happen? And it was like, okay, yeah, I'm doing it. Let's do this thing.
That's awesome, man. See, I can definitely appreciate video games with being an all senses storytelling device thing going on. I can definitely appreciate it. I was just never good at it, so.
That's real. Like, this game is hard, and I imagine like being able just trying to enjoy the beautifulness of it, but then hating the fact that you're dying constantly is also a thing.
I can only imagine. Well, that's cool. For me, was that?
Yeah, that's it for me. That's what's. Oh, and I also watched this really weird movie last night. That's like still in my brain. It's called Three Identical Strangers.
Called Three Identical Strangers?
Yeah, and it's like a documentary about three triplets that like were separated at birth and adopted, and then like accidentally find each other after when they're like 19.
Sounds cool.
It was kind of crazy. It made me think of some stories to tell. That's why it like stuck. It was like the way it started out was like, and it's like not any kind of spoiler because there's like it gets crazy and there's like twists and stuff. But like this guy starts college and everyone's like saying hi to him, but they're calling him Eddie, and he's like, that's not his name. And they're like, yeah. And he's like, my name's Eddie. Like, yeah, you're so funny, Eddie. Yeah, what's up, man? Like, I didn't know you were coming back. You said you weren't coming back. And it was like the guy whose dorm that he basically took over was his twins.
Weird.
And then like the guy like came up to him and was like, you said your name's not Eddie. When were you born? And he like asked him all his personal questions, and he's like, the guy who I was friends with last semester, like, is your twin. Like, and then they like it gets kind of cheesy sometimes a little bit too, but it was like they like got in the car and were like, I know where he lives. Like, let's go. We're going right now. Like, let's go meet your twin. Like, and they get pulled over on the way, and the cops like, where are you guys going so fast? And they tell the whole story, and he's like, yeah, good story. Here's your ticket. Stop being a jerk. Like, so anyway, I'll get that over to you. What are you being inspired by?
Yeah, so Ray Bradbury is a big inspiration behind my October comic, and just in general, he's a pretty awesome storyteller. And my wife got me this. I don't know if you can see it, but it's called the Bradbury Theater, the Ray Bradbury Theater. 65 short stories from the master of sci-fi, and it's a DVD box set, 5 DVDs. And there's like William Shatner and Jeff Goldblum and Drew Barrymore, really, really young. And it kind of seems like a Ray Bradbury version of Tales from the Crypt meets Twilight Zone, sort of a thing. So I've never heard of that, and I'm pretty excited about that. So this will be influencing me soon, but I just want to share that because my wife got it for me for my birthday yesterday. Along with that, she also got me this here copy of X-Men Grand Design by Ed Piscor.
That's that one you've been talking about, right? It's like really like the art is awesome and like super old looking and style.
Yes, I love it. Same guy that did Hip Hop Family Tree, which you would obviously love for many reasons. But yeah, this is, you know that I'm a kayfaber at this point. I talk about it a lot. But Ed Piscor from Cartoonist Kayfabe here on YouTube and podcast channels. This is book 1 of his X-Men Grand Design. And I've been giving I missed the first ones, but I've been getting his other installments. Yeah, my wife got me this one, and I've just since I've got it on Saturday, I haven't even started reading it. I've just been flipping through and looking at panels and composition and how he does what he does and trying to figure out and dissect. Like he does this thing. I don't know if you can see it here at all, but let's see. In this panel here where it's white with this old-timey kind of newsprint looking page, it almost looks like a white ink printed on top. But found out from listening to his show that it's actually the white of the page. He digitally colors his pages in Photoshop to make them look like the old newsprint because it's not actually the old newsprint. It's kind of a matte finish, but it's good pages. So he colors them to look like old newsprint, and then in certain areas for highlight, like this up here, he'll let the white of the page shine through, and it just leaps off the page.
Yeah, it is like there's like a really cool. So it's like so he lays in the texture of the newsprint, but then leaves like doesn't lay the texture in certain areas to leave it like stark white, basically.
Exactly. So that seems kind of crazy to me, how you do all that. But he does a cool thing as well, which reminded me of some of the things you do, and something I think I saw on some of the background watercolor scans that you had. But for magneto energy, he'll scan in wood grains, but then color the lines that kind of awesome X-Men magenta pinky color.
Yeah.
Like the magneto lines, and then he'll like color it. So he'll use the wood grain as like the crazy magnetic line things. And it looks so cool. But anyway, really inspired by what he's doing, and Jim Rugg as well. Did you see that thing I put on I'd Rather Be Drawing Space
page? It was open in a tab right now on my computer. Like, I'm just waiting to watch it. I was literally like, oh my gosh, I need this in my life.
I know. I'm going to hound you until you do, but once you do, you'll love it. The guys are cool. They're a mixture of everything good in the world.
So. Well, I almost listened to it when I mowed, and then I realized, like, I need to watch this. This is like a visual thing. Like, this is probably something I really need to absorb.
Yeah, that one with the screen toning, probably, but at least like a little bit more. But you really know a lot about it. Like I say, he just has a couple things in there, but their show, check it out sometime, like their page, because they have a few different. They have a few different formats of shows that they deliver. So they do a weekly shoot, which is pretty much what you and I do. And like Corey Kerr and Joshua Kemble, where they're just doing an art check to kind of catch up where they are with their projects and everything. It was cool because when he was finishing up X-Men Grand Design a couple months ago, he brought in the stack of pages and just had them like the whole project. But then they'll do reviews of like Akira and Tony Moore comics. And I don't know. I'm a big fan, obviously, but I think that there's a lot. It's not just like I've been enjoying this show, but I think what they're doing is kind of important to cartooning and like the community right now. And they're getting interviews with famous people, with cartoonists who should be more famous and maybe don't have a bunch of interviews. People who I think should be famous. But anyway, those guys are inspiring me, so it's pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I checked out the when I finally clicked on the link there, and I like checked out their whole page, and it was like this is like I don't know, this is the compliment. It was like overwhelming. There was so much good stuff that I wanted to listen to. I couldn't settle on what I wanted to listen to, and then I went up. I fell back to my classic, which is Make It Tell Everybody. I listen to that usually when I mow.
Yeah, that's a solid one for sure. Yeah, check it out sometime. They really they break it up pretty good. So once you find what you like, there's something in there for everybody. But they do update their channel often, which is cool. Can be overwhelming, but like I said, when you find your brand of whatever they're doing,
right. Well, it's not that. It's the I mean, updating your channel. It's just that it seems like their channel has some age to it. Like they've definitely been doing it for a good minute.
Less time. Like for as much as they have, like they do have a huge catalog right now. You'd think that they, have been doing this for like a couple years, but I think they're definitely like still inside of their first year.
Oh, seriously?
But they just these guys are about working hard. They're working hard on their comics all the time. They edit together these things. They'll get together and shoot a string of these commentaries about certain comic for a day, and then know that I'm going to be on the plane for this long. So I don't know, they take it seriously, and they have plans for what they want to do with their channel and where they're taking it, and they respond to their fans like every time. They're doing good stuff. I think they're definitely something to watch in the community. So, yeah. But I've been plugging their channel so long. Also, stop by ours once in a while. It's pretty cool.
Just sending everyone there, and they're so busy with all their content. They're like, oh yeah, that's right. There's stuff to listen to over here too.
Man, that's really all I got. But I am excited about that 5-year plan thing for next week. So
yeah, that's a cool idea. I'm definitely gonna jump right into that. Speaking of people finding our channel, somehow a table of my students found our channel this last week. And as they were like working on their project last week, they were watching us. So just so you know, that was like not embarrassing for me at all to like have like walk by and see my face on their computer screen like every 5 minutes.
you're like, wait, what's happening? You guys making fun of me? Oh,
They kept pulling the headphones out whenever I was talking, and then like you'd hear my voice like, so, like, guys, you know everyone hates their own voice, right? Like you gotta cut this out.
I thought it was just me.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely universal. We could talk about that for a whole episode. How much do you hate your voice, Scott?
So much. I don't like the way it sounds. We better get out of here. We're going to chase people away for good. Hey, thanks to the people in the chat. Been nice seeing you guys and catching up. We will be here next week, like I said, probably either either Sunday night or Monday evening, one of the two. But we'll be here. Is there anything else you want to kind of add to the topic or anything in general, David?
I just really like how you said Sunday night or Monday evening, but it's going to be the same time for both of those nights.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that. I wouldn't want to say night twice in a row. That would be redundant.
Yeah.
There's some such stuff. Thanks that your thing to add was critiquing me. Sure.
I guess my thing to add is my summary. You know me. I have my bullet point list here that I'm staring at, and my summary of it all, because we definitely talked about all of it and then some, is just to like make sure that you are being inspired by outside sources and like pick a genre, but find a way to redefine that genre like with one thing, right? Like I'm gonna do a zombie whatever this thing, or it's gonna be noir or crime, or it's gonna be about werewolves and unicorns, right? But like what's the one thing you can do different because a completely different media is doing it that way. I think it's just like a thing to like think about and absorb into you guys' brains for the future. So I think that's it now. I think I'm happy with that. It was a good talk. It was a good ramble. I'll make sure to change the name of this episode to Rants and Rambles.
Rancid Rambles? That's Rancid Rambles. All right. Makes this kind of sound cool, but also just lame. But no, man, that was a good wrap up. It was good talking with you. And as you guys can see, talk to other humans once in a while. You'll end up like this. It's no good.
It's no good.
For me, where you can find what I do and my post of Gentleman Jeff Gentry in the next day or two is on Instagram at mrgreendraws.com, mr.greendraws. Can I say .com? Whatever. It's on Instagram. You know how it works. Also, go to 100daysofmakingcomics.com. The Kickstarter's over, but if you want to learn about all the different artists, we all have a blurb on there. It tells what the whole thing's about and does tell you about the book. And you would be able to, I'm sure, contact somebody from that website if you want to get yourselves a copy. And to everyone out there in the chat or otherwise listening to this, if you shared it, told anybody about it, gave a like or a comment or a heart, or even, I dare say, purchased it with your own well-earned cash, I really, really appreciate it. All of us do. Matthew Enstrom expressed that in the chat as well. Just our thanks to everybody out there and all the kind support in the community. So I do appreciate that. Mr. Fleming, Analog Missions, your updates on Volume 2. Where can we keep tabs on all that good stuff?
Instagram, Art of Mr. Fleming as well. Mr. David Fleming on Facebook. And I mean, if you just look that up, you'll find Mr. David Fleming art. You're going to find me. It's kind of actually a pretty cool thing that I did this not more than a month ago to see like what kind of presence I actually have on the internet. And if you look up Mr. David Fleming art, I pop up. I'm like I'm the face in the art on the Google search, and that's kind of cool. So Instagram, though, Art of Mr. Fleming is definitely the place you're going to want to find me, and you'll find links to all the good stuff, to buy analog missions. Buy two, right? That has happened twice now, and I'm still really curious what that is. But the same person buying two off of my shop, like
It's one for the coffee table, one for the can.
there you go, because you don't want to take it out of the can once it's been there for like a full read, right?
Oh my gosh. Now that we're done Googling ourselves and each other.
Ooh, I'm gonna Google you when we're done with this.
Ooh.
Ooh.
All right, we really better get going.
All right, guys. Peace. Like Scott said, thanks for everyone in the chat. I did not have my other computer up to check the chat, so I do hope that if anything happened in the chat and we missed it, a future episode, right, to derail one more time, is I want to start doing like questions from you guys. So keep that in mind because we're going to bring that up next week. So peace out, guys. We outie.